Hey guys, to all in the political science class, and then Patrick, who I'm looking at his paper about environmentalism, I just want to clarify a few things. That yellow means that there's a grammar issue or a mistake, something I'm questioning a little bit, and then green is being of that there is a word choice that I disagree with per se, that I think you could use a different word. So first thing I noticed really heavily in your paper is that you started with a real strong introduction. You say that don't just look at all the environmental problems, but look at them as something differently called environmental theory. Environmental or green theory has changed over the years, and it used to be about humans controlling or dominating nature, whereas now it's about a way to promote or save the planet, which is ultimately the end goal of environmentalism. You draw heavily upon Matthew Peterson, who believes green theory and IR should be combined in the presence. And then you also talk about three elements that he does use. First one being understanding of being, providing knowledge and changing opinions. The first step is recovery is always acknowledging you have a problem. So if we acknowledge the problem, then we can provide change and ultimately do change. The next element is understanding global limits. How far can we push the Earth is pretty big concept. How far can we actually keep on going like the way we are? And I think like in Al Gore's video, we seen that like pollution. Even if we stopped right now, it would still go on for 40 to 50 years. And then the third element being a new global order, trying to create a new government body that recognizes environmental politics. And maybe you want to talk about the Green Party in here, not the Green Theory. Don't know why I wanted to say that. And then you did a real nice job of relating Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth to Avatar and their similarities. And then you also said something about that we're stingy for our raw materials. Ultimately, war is likely to be caused because of the need for raw materials, and that's historically present. And then you said just like the people of Nai who are suffering by the Earth's military, you see over in China where they're having to wear masks around their faces when they're in big cities because the air is so polluted around there that they have to wear these masks. And it's just all because of the industrial presence there. One statement I did love that you did use is what answer the movie is trying to give is that in order to stop climate change, humans need to use the perspective that we are all one with the planet. And I think that very end part, you need to bold it. It's a power statement. Power statements are good for a paper and whatnot. Ultimately they can, fire up people and whatnot. So next, you did talk about how Jake and the team changed. Ultimately, they changed their perspective, in which you can kind of go back to that first element that they're understanding that there is a problem and gaining knowledge about the problem itself. And then on page 4, you talk about the theory of environmentalism is trying to invoke in humans that problems can be solved even just by looking at it from a different perspective. Just looking at things differently, sometimes we can understand that maybe we're wrong in the way we do things. And then you also talk about how movies can be dismissed just because they're a movie per se. But sometimes they can be enlightening. Heavily upon documentaries, they can be enlightening, just like when we watch Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth. It was kind of enlightening to see some of the stuff that he was talking about. And then, you also talked about Jake helped the naive people because, he loved the woman of a cherry. I believe I'm saying that right. And then you did a nice of relating real world to the people of Pandora overall. And then, if you can bear with me, I gotta find this quote. I found a quote on page 5 that I did love. The movie gives a unique perspective on what the future could hold for humans if they continue on the path they are currently on in regards to global warming and climate change. it brings into question that if the world doesn't change and if human-made climate change continues to happen and destroy the planet, what will humans do? Are humans allowed to do whatever they can in order to fix a problem that they created in the first place? The RDA is trying to take over and claim resources that are vital to another planet's survival. You talked about, the human-made climate change and how we kind of just keep on trying to solve our own. Well, we kind of don't try to solve the problem in a way, often than not. But the RDA is trying to solve it by taking another planet's needs to survive, and that being the home tree. And ultimately comes back down to greed. You did a nice way of relating between the theory and the avatar. Drew heavily upon that throughout your essay. And then the movie does take a different perspective, for sure. And then at the end of page 5, in the beginning to page 6, you talk about the ideology in Pacific. Well, you talk about an ideology that there's a widely expected among all theorists. Maybe go a little bit more in depth into that ideology per se. And then another quote I liked is it brings, well, no, I didn't per se like. I liked towards the end of it, but it kind of made me question, is it brings you up. I don't know if that was like a grammar issue or whatnot. The question for them asked whether it is morally right to save themselves or protect the naive. What gives us the right to choose which one deserves to be, able to survive, and what makes us, what gives us the president to actually do and, force changes upon other people. There is a bias in the movie per se, because it does heavily draw upon the naive people's side. And then Jake, definitely sides with the naive people because he loved that one native. And then finally, there's one more quote that I did like. The movie only gives us the perspective that humans need the resources on Pandora, and there is no other opinion than to go on and take them. Another inconsistency with the movie comes from the opposing views of humans. That is Jake's perspective, while the movie is made to make the audience appeal to the side of the naive people, and that the humans are the antagonists, which can be lost in translation, is the intentions of the humans trying to save Pandora and the naive. We kind of do lose a little bit of the fact that there was a few humans that definitely for sure wanted to help save the naive people. And I think it is relevant if you kind of look at it throughout society, well, not society per se, but the world, and that environmentalism is a concern for most people. And then if you look at I'm going to talk a little bit more about criticisms. One thing I know that I love to do is just read out loud your paper before you post it onto a Blackboard and whatnot. It can help fix grammar or mistakes. I just love reading it, because when I read it, I'm able to sit there and say, what the heck am I saying here? You did throw a nice touch of a personal opinion at the beginning. Try to you always want to make sure you're not throwing in too much of that. Find that nice happy medium, because you don't want to draw heavily too upon your own opinion, because then you seem biased. And then you may want to actually possibly add more to that first element in that you drawn from Matthew Peterson. Just don't leave it on a quote, because if you leave something on a quote, you're not saying why it's important. And you don't like to do that. My teacher always told me to never just leave a quote by itself or at the end of a paragraph, just a little note there. But you did well with explaining the importance of the second and third element, so you can draw upon those for sure. And then on page 3, you used the word immediated. At first I was wondering, what the heck are you saying, and what are you trying to tell me here? So I actually put, I don't know if you're trying to say that because the definition is to copy, and I wasn't for sure if that's what you're trying to mean, but what I was thinking is that he fell in love with society. So I said, maybe you want to use infatuated, captivated, charmed, inflamed, seduced. Maybe not seduced, but Yeah, and then there's another word there you used, invoked. Maybe you want to use provoke, just depending on how you feel. But overall, if you wanted, if you want to add more to what the theory is, like at the introduction, and like you drew heavily upon the movie, but maybe you want to draw a little bit more on actually what this theory is. I don't know if you would like to do that, but it's up to you. But it seemed pretty short in comparison to the rest of the essay. I think it would be productive if you did that, if you drew a little more upon the theory itself. And then I'm not for sure if you've found a nice happy medium with your quotes. You used a lot of them in the very introduction and like the very first few pages, but then it kind of just went away and whatnot, and I thought maybe you could use a little bit more of that. And then I didn't see much about the other sources that you had in there. I've seen a lot about Weber and whatnot. I think a little bit from Peterson, but maybe you're just waiting to put those in on a little bit later and whatnot. So that's all I got. So if you have any questions, you can email me at, I'll put the link, well, not my link, but my email into the thing. So thank you guys.